Here? Oh. Okay. Thank you. Minimal requirements for CHR is 128 megabytes of RAM and only 128 megabytes of hard drive. It's a very small instance which you can use in DigitalOcean, some kinds of providers which provide us virtualization systems. And what support in our what supported for your manual installation? It's VMware, all of products, desktop and server virtualization products. Microsoft Hyper-V, you can use it on Hyper-V on Windows 10 in Professional Edition, and you can use it on Microsoft Hyper-V in normal installation. You can use in QEMU and VirtualBox, but you must remember that we don't provide para-virtualization to install it. What about licensing? License is very simple of CHR. You can use only for your personal purposes free license, which is enough to start in the Dude for monitoring system. You can use license P1, which only limited us with the speed on our network ports to 1 gigabit per second. You can use P10, 10 gigabit, and P unlimited. It's unlimited on all of our interfaces. We have no limitation, like in x86, to count of tunnels, count of users in user manager. And you have always a 60-day trial license for all paid levels. And where we can use? First of all, CHR is a router. And first, our scenario is a router. Where we can use? We can use it on VMware ESXi for free appliances, for small companies. And in this situation, you can have all of features in our MikroTik router boards and x86 installations. You have full functionality in our border and border segment. In network virtualization layer, you can use MikroTik CHR as normal, and you can replace your VMware NSX if you use bigger installations. You can use another case using CHR as a Dude for monitoring system. For monitoring, with the Dude, you can use it with free license. 1 gigabit is enough, 1 megabit, sorry, is enough to monitor over 100 router boards or clients. On this screenshot, you can see modified and fully customized icons, colors, and so on for our Dude client. And as Martin's talked about, main goal and main theme of main point of my presentation is using CHR in EVNG. Who use some kinds of virtualization, or who know how you can virtualize your productive networks in different kinds. Do you use development stages, development racks? Do you know what is EVNG? Okay, let's start it. It's a bricks, like on this. In what kind we testing and learning? What's happened? Just a moment. It's not working. Okay. Sometimes technical problems happens. We can test and learn router OS and test all of features on real equipment and real servers, real router boards, but sometimes it's very expensive. We can test, like you see on a photo from the right side, in a classes. What's happened? Okay. In a classes with many cable presentations with many cables and sometimes with cookies, but you can use some system of virtualization. You can use VMware E6i or desktop VMware Workstation, VMware Fusion for Mac, but it's hardful with the time and creating VLANs, port groups. You expends more time for creating testing lab. You can use also Microsoft Hyper-V on desktop or server version. Some of you know about GNS, system of testing. We can emulate and test networks on a Cisco or another. Cisco, Juniper, MikroTik also. And what we can do in if. If it's an emulated virtual environment, even G, it's a next generation, it's a fork of UnitLab, which started the life of this project. And differences between GNS and if, you, in both cases, must start virtual machine. But difference, for GNS, you must use client. For if, you have native client in your browser. Your browser is available on all of systems, from Linux till macOS. And some features. You have hardware acceleration. Topology, click and play. You play like a bricks or like a Lego. You can export and migrate your labs in normal XML format between labs or between instances. Customly modified kernel support full of families of L2 protocols. Memory optimization help us to start if and G in on your laptops or your small computers. Not you have no needs to start on big server realizations. All interfaces are written on HTML5, and you can use it without additional tools. How you can install it? You can download open virtualization format with on template for hyper-resource, and you can quickly start it. You can install it on bare metal, on normal server in your network and test it. Or you can install it on Ubuntu systems or download ISO with already packed EvenG packages to Ubuntu. What about versions? We have 3 versions of EvenG. One of it is free for every time. It's a community edition, but have some limitations. You have only 63 nodes per one instance, but it's necessary to test and to learn networks or network designs with most common tasks for every day. Professional version is payment, 99 euro without VAT here, but you have more nodes per one lab. You have full HTML5 desktop. You have full Docker support, and you can advance design your links, custom shapes, or another pictures. And more important for network engineers, tools, you can change link qualities like jitter, delay. You can emulate real weather conditions for your weather or conditions for your labs. And we have Learning Center. Minimal payment for this version, approximately €1,000, because you have roles about such as admin, user, editor, and for each of these roles you must pay for it, and two edition in €99 by one version. Link for download you can scan. On the web page, you have two mirrors, one is on Google Cloud. Or you can try to download EvenG to try or test today. And on another two links, you can download integration packs. What's mean integration packs? You have additional tools for testing and for monitoring your networks, like packet sniffer Wireshark, Ultra VNC for accessing Linux desktops or Windows desktops. You have PuTTY and wrappers for your browser in registry to handle links like Captcha, Telnet, and such one. Integration packs are available only for Windows and Linux. Not available for Mac, but you can use if normally on a Mac system, and later you will see it. How quickly we can deploy EvenG? We can download OVA template and start in VMware Player, which is free for use, for use, or you can convert OVA template to Microsoft Hyper-V and start on your laptops and Windows 10 Professional. After it, because we have a user meeting about MikroTik, you want to emulate and try testing MikroTik systems. And what kind? Only 6 steps, simple 6 steps. You must start your virtual machine, log in into EvenG host, by SSH or by console, download image from MikroTik on download with version what you want, create necessary directories according to docs which is in cookbook on a web page, unpack your image from zip or targzip to image file and rename it to hd.qcow2 because we use in EvenG QEMU virtualization. Move image to previously created directory and fix permission of files and our newly created directories. But we don't want to click in, write in, and write down some files, and we can use script for installing CHR. Script will created by me, special for adding new versions of router OS images, because you can handle more than one in your instance. And script and labs, which from demo you can, and scripts from demo you can find on GitHub. Okay. Quick start for our labs. In what kind we can try to start, and what we have. First of all, we must log into our virtual machine. Default credentials root and eve. If you want, after installation or applying OVA template, you can change it. Get a copy of script, which create necessary directories, download it, and with parameter you only put version of router OS you want to try. And next steps will provide it only in your web browser without additional tools. How, what about look of our if? You have login, normal login screen with username, password, and you can choose what type of console you can use. It can be native console like PuTTY, or you can use HTML5 web console to your devices, virtual devices, which provided by Guacamole on Apache. For it, your project, you click in new project, name your project, and add some things about like description, tasks if you want to distribute your labs for inlining purposes. And after creating, you see a workbench with simple menu, graphical menu on the left side, where you can add nodes, networks, handle, edit, copy, and export, startup configs about they I'll talk later. And in many more actions, you can manipulate with all nodes in your workbench. Adding node to project is simply you click in add node, and you can find with the quick search field, or scroll down to MikroTik router OS. Select the version of image you will use in your project. Select network card driver, recommendation by creators of IF and by community. Use VirtualNet PCI driver, not standard VMXNet, because consumes less memory, and my router know about this network card more than about others. You can add a network, because router without network is not useful for you and for your testing. And you have management clouds which are knotted or bridged to your computer. It's for your decision. Do you want to become your testing lab in your real network, or in only for your laptop? After it, you can connect node and network. And if in your MikroTik CHR you can use more than one, you can choose what network adapter you can use for it. And after it, you can start your VM. And what we can start, stop, wipe your configuration if you made some mistake, or you want to start to apply startup configuration from your lab. You can wipe it and start over to build your lab in network configuration. And you can export configuration to startup config and migrate. You can capture traffic on your interfaces of router OS, and I'll show you it. And delete. Startup configuration is one of the best thing in EVNG, because you can edit manually your startup configuration and apply it between real networks, real network devices, in simple way by the help of import and export. And you can edit it in a web page. We add for our labs for startup configs small command delay. 10 seconds it's experimental time. You can put less or more time for starting. It help us, help our CHRs to start up network interfaces. And network interfaces, without this command, not fully start up and not fully apply our config what we want. In our list of our configurations, we can import and export configuration between and share it between our colleagues or our instances of this if. And as for me, it's most interesting thing. It's a real demo on a computer. I will show you a 3 demo, like hello world, all in programming starting from hello world in your console. The next one, it's a dedicated lab for learning or training centers with static routing lab between. This is the kind of view in EVE-NG. And the last one is OSPF multi-area demo with 6 routers. And if I have enough time, I will show you how we can connect this lab to a real network in the real world. No, thank you, but we'll try to show you. Before the presentation, I prepare a clean image of Eve. After starting, you can see an IP address of our Eve, and we will try to connect to it by simple typing IP. I will use an HTML5 console because default credentials admin Eve. We have empty workbench and we'll create hello world. First lab and save. Like I said, told previously, you have a menu from the left side where you can handle networks, nodes, your startup configs, but we have no routers. And let's add our node. And when we try to find routers, it's great. We must to log in our Eve and try to download our script from GitHub. I don't remember the full path, but we have internet. If you use macOS for your everyday life, you can find the CHR handler for EVE-NG. CHR EVE-NG. CHR. And let's start our script. Can magnify. We use our script in a simple way. You can help or simple man. Only adding version, actual version is 6.44.3. And router OS image will download from MikroTik form. Router OS image will download and unpack and put in your in necessary directory. I'm sorry for this kind of image, but projector did not want to work with HDMI. All of your steps in your shell or of your Eve community virtual machine, it's not necessary. You can try to add some more. Versions of your router OS, and trying to add our router OS, we have on a colored with the blue. We only add one network card, one node, and change our network driver for VirtualNet PCI and save it. After it, we can add a network. On my laptop, the network is bridged to my private network and not available from outside. And save. After it, we try to connect it by clicking on a plug. And let's start it. When we click on a picture, on icon of our MikroTik, we can see our console like a normal console of your router board. With default login admin without password. You can see, oh, just a moment, I refresh. Okay. You can saw the simple configuration, default configuration of our router OS of CHR. We have enabled DHCP client on a Ether1, and let's check our address. We'll give a IP address, and we, with the help of DHCP client, we receive a DNS server, and let's check connectivity to internet by pinging simple MikroTik.com. And as you saw, we have normal router in our virtual environment. But what about Winbox? Not all of us like only text terminal. And we can see a CHR with these configurations. Just a moment. I will magnify. You see that the name of our CHR is MikroTik, but what we can do, we can change the name, and all changes in our console, web console, will applied momentarily to your graphic configuration. And you can see that you have R1. And what about import and export configuration for our router? We only change identity of this router. When we want to export configuration, it's a simple, only export, and after some minutes or seconds, so it depends on your computer, we can see our configuration with changed identity. And what we can do, add in our magic string with delay, We save it. And when we wipe our router, and turn on our configuration, all changes which write it down on the startup config will apply it to our router. On your console, you can see that our system will try to reset without default configuration, and after resetting, we'll try to apply config which are write down on exported conf in the startup config. Just a moment. We have delay, only 10 seconds. And we have changed the name to R1 like we write down step before. And what about importing and exporting configuration? We have I have some configuration previously made it for this MOM, and we can upload it to our instance of EVNG. And first demo, it's a static routing of configuration. On this lab, for your students or for yourself, if you're studying yourself, you must configure a simple static routing with 2 routers and 2 virtual PCs which you have. In startup configuration, you have only changed identity for simple use in this. And let's start it. After importing and exporting configuration or migrating between instances, all router configs are wiped. You must remember about it that your version and versions of router apply to your actual installed versions. We have a clock right down, and we can see that routers started and what we can do and why we use Wireshark. Just a moment, configuration not fully applied. For understanding external tools, we will try to monitor connection link between 2 routers on interface on router 2, on interface Ether 2, capturing all packets which are migrating between routers. As you can see, we have no traffic between routers, but we can try to configure our router 1 according to the simple scenario. Okay. It's a weight of cable. We have on a router 1 connectivity and network address. And let's start. And we add a simple connection link on Ether 2. And according to our task, we start DHCP server on Ether 1 for our virtual PC. And let's see that all working. Virtual PC is available to all instances of Event G. It's simple pinging and tracing machine. You can see that we have IP address, and according to our task, we must configure router 2 we add in a connection link between routers. And let's check. Starting the DHCP server on Ether 1. And what we have, when we try to ping from our router, the remote site, we have no routes. But what we can see on our let's filter ACMP, we have no on our interface pings because we have no routes between our hosts. Let's add it in a simple way by default route. Gateways. We see pings, but we have no replies for all sites. Let's add route only this side. Like a default. And this way, we made simple lab for testing and trying. It's a most common thing for of your knowledges in a routing. It's a static routing. What about another? Our labs and demos. Let's start to see OSPF in more actions. We stop our nodes. We have OSPF with backbone and 3 areas added to our lab. And the main goal of and main thought of this lab is to show you that you can emulate and test all of network routing protocols like in dynamic protocols, BGP, traffic engineering tunnels in different ways. And don't be afraid to connect your testing networks to a real life networks. Just a moment to starting, give them time. We have 6 routers like a core of on and routers live in a kind of clients. We see only one neighbor from cab. We have already configured all of the routers, and all configurations and all of these labs will be available on GitHub after my presentation. And if you want, you can try it and test it after your lunch or in home. Not all of routers are started. But we can check in command line. As you see, previously created configuration applied to our routers. In this case, you can also match time for our router, because we applying routing protocols. And what about inbox? We can see all of our routers. And when we connect to our router 1, which we can see on this side, this router is a router which distributes default route with the help of OSPF. And we can see routes. And let's try to monitor, capture our traffic on a Ether 2. On Windows system, after installing helpers, you don't need to enter password to accessing for starting Wireshark. And as you can see, some communications between our routers in the network flow made in. We can see hello packets of OSPF. And in comparing to our routes in, just a moment, I will magnify. You can see that we have all routes in our networks and routes between our areas. And in this case, we can see most common LSA communicates between our routers, such as summary network, network router, and external route, which are injected as type 1. And for this point of my presentation, I will end it. And if you have questions, I will ready to answer it. You can find all labs presentation and script on GitHub. You can write email if you want or if you need it. My hour is ended. Questions? That's all. Thank you.